And is that the only book you've written, or have you written more than one book?
I've only written one book.
What was the book about?
The book was about human trafficking and about the vulnerabilities that lead to trafficking, the problems when it occurs, and basically how to recover from it after.
Where was the book set?
It was set in a fictional town.
What was the name of the fictional town?
Hiawassee Springs.
So Hiawassee. Is it located in the panhandle of Florida?
No, I used to see the name when I was driving from Tallahassee to Orlando, so it's somewhere in between.
And was the place modeled after Tallahassee?
It was definitely somewhere in Florida, but not supposed to be about Tallahassee, no.
Who was the central character in that book?
So there's 3 central characters. One was one of my clients, kind of a composite character from Eastern Europe. One was kind of a composite character of many clients I've represented from Latin America, and one was a public interest lawyer.
And was the public interest lawyer Lily?
Yes.
And is that the character that's sort of based after yourself?
No, really more based after a friend of mine.
And was Hiawassee, Florida, quote, just a small stop on the way back to what we had previously known as civilization? Is that a quote from your book?
That sounds like a quote from my book, yeah.
And who's the husband of Lily, the public interest lawyer?
You want his name in the book?
Yes.
I think it was Josh Stone.
All right, and what was Josh's employment?
Josh was an English professor.
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
Josh was an English professor.
A professor, where did he teach?
It's been a while. I wrote the book over 10 years ago. I don't remember what I named the university in the
North Florida State University?
That sounds right.
NFSU?
NFSU sounds right, yeah.
All right, and in the book, does Lily lament, quote, we moved to this godforsaken place for Josh's career?
Yes, that sounds like a line Lily would say.
All right. When you looked at page 187 of the divorce document on cross, and I'll hand that back to you. This is actually my copy. Just turn back to 187. Do you see the quote that you read previously from that page?
I don't.
Okay. It had to do with, let's see if I can find it, that you were very unhappy in the marriage. I think it's the 3rd paragraph there.
I see that line.
Okay, the wife has been very unhappy in the marriage and files her petition for dissolution of marriage in August 2012. The husband continues to characterize this as abandonment, and then it goes on to say that he had been disparaging you to some of the folks at the law school. Do you remember reading that?
I do.
Was that intended to be the place in this binder where you allege emotional abuse by your husband?
I mean, I think it's emotionally abusive to suggest somebody has mental health issues.
Okay. What is the Prof's blog? You were asked about that on Cross.
Yeah, it was a blog that Danny started with some of his colleagues to kind of promote community in the law professor world.
And who reads the Prof's?
Probably
Prof's blog?
other law professors and people interested in becoming law professors.
Who is on the Crim Prof listserv?
I don't know.
Were you on the listserv for that profs blog?
I may have been on the listserv at some point.
Do you remember seeing the post that you were shown on Cross?
I do.
And the post says something about Danny and I are planning to attend a conference that will begin Sunday, July 20th. Is there any other information on what you were shown about Dan's travel plans post-murder other than that?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
The post says Danny and I guess it's another professor writing this thing. Danny and I are planning to attend a conference that will begin Sunday, July 20th. Is that the type of information that he would typically have on something like the Prof's blog or Facebook?
That sounds right.
Okay, but as far as the date he's leaving, the flight he's on, that kind of stuff, would that typically be on the Prof's blog?
He wouldn't put what flight number he was on, but he would almost always communicate when he was going on a trip.
Okay, so going to a conference that starts July 20th might be an example.
Flying to New York tomorrow would be an example.
Okay. But
not,
he didn't
not
put
a flight number.
But he didn't put flying to New York tomorrow on this occasion.
No.
You were referenced several times, not on direct examination by the state, but by your brother's attorney on cross as a co-conspirator. Are you charged in this case?
No.
This isn't your trial, is it?
No.
Is your brother charged with conspiring with you to do a murder?
No.
Is he charged with conspiring with you to plan a murder?
No.
Is he charged with soliciting you to do a murder?
No.
Who is he charged with doing those things with?
I don't think anyone.
Have you had an opportunity to review his indictment in this case?
I have not.
Give you an opportunity to take a look at that document to yourself. Who is your brother alleged to have done these crimes with?
Catherine D. Magbanowa.
Were you on the wire in this case, Ms. Adelson?
No.
So when the bump happened, are you familiar with the event I'm referencing as the bump?
I am now.
When law enforcement approached your mother on the street and handed her a piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay, when that occurred, who did your mother call?
I don't know.
Not you, right?
Not me.
Okay. And once your brother found out about the bump, did he call you about it?
No.
Who did he call?
I don't know.
Well, you listened to the calls to authenticate the voices, didn't you?
Just to hear the voices, not to hear the content of the calls.
Okay. And the voices were your brother's voice, right?
But I listened to the calls just to hear who was on them, so I don't know what content they're referencing.
I heard your answer. My question to you now is, your brother's voice was on the calls.
He was on some of the calls I listened to.
Okay. Your mother's voice was on the calls.
She was on some of the calls I listened to.
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
You were asked about Jeffrey Lacasse and the way that your relationship ended. What is OkCupid?
OkCupid is a dating website.
Were you on that dating website?
I was.
Were you on that dating website at the time that you were dating Mr. Lacasse?
No, I wasn't.
And were you speaking, so I guess if you weren't on it, you weren't speaking to multiple men from the website during the time you were dating Mr. Lacasse. And I'll remind you that you provided your phone in this case and it was cell-brighted, downloaded.
Objection, argument.
What if I told you that the most dangerous place to hide the truth isn't in silence, but in plain sight? That sometimes the person everyone sees as the victim might be the one pulling strings no one dares to examine? That a family's love could become the perfect cover for something far darker? In July 2014, a respected law professor was executed in his own driveway in broad daylight. The hitmen were caught. The middlemen were convicted. But the person closest to the victim, the one who stood to gain the most, has never been charged. Her name is Wendi Adelson. And after watching what you're about to see, You'll question everything you thought you knew about guilt, innocence, and the masks we wear in public. Before we dive into one of the most twisted family conspiracies in American criminal history, I need you to do something. If you're fascinated by cases where the truth hides behind courtroom smiles and calculated words, where every testimony reveals more questions than answers, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to Dark Trail Files right now, because we don't just tell you what happened. We show you what everyone else missed. We analyze the silences, the body language, the moments where truth slips through the cracks. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's uncover the truth together. Because this case, it's far from over. July 18th, 2014. Tallahassee, Florida. A quiet Friday morning in a suburban neighborhood called Benton Hills. The kind of neighborhood where people know their neighbors, where children play in front yards, where the biggest concern is usually whether to water the lawn or wait for rain. Dan Markel, a brilliant 41-year-old law professor at Florida State University, had just dropped his 2 young sons at daycare. He was driving home, probably thinking about the weekend ahead, maybe planning activities with his boys, perhaps mentally preparing for the article he was writing or the class he'd teach the following week. He pulled into his driveway at approximately 11:45 a.m. He never made it inside. 2 men in a light-colored Prius had been waiting. Not just waiting randomly. They'd been tracking him. Surveillance that morning showed they'd followed him to the daycare, waited while he dropped off his children, then tailed him back to his home on Trescott Drive. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't opportunistic. This was methodical. As Dan sat in his car, likely checking his phone or gathering his things, completely unaware that these were his final moments, one of the men approached. A single gunshot shattered the peaceful morning. Then another. Dan Markel was shot twice in the head at point-blank range. The killers fled, their Prius disappearing into Tallahassee traffic as if they'd never been there. Neighbors heard the shots, but saw nothing suspicious at first. Just another car in a neighborhood where cars came and went all day. Then someone noticed Dan's car, still running in the driveway, the door open, and blood. So much blood pooling on the concrete. Video. Audio of 911 call and Dan Markel shooting. Lead in. The panic in the neighbor's voice tells you everything about how normal this day was supposed to be. Listen carefully to the moment when ordinary life collides with unthinkable violence.
911, what's the address of your emergency location? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We heard and looked in, the garage door was up, and I thought the gentleman was backing out, and I went back to my house, but he never backed out, and I came back over, and his driver's side window is shattered, and he's battered and can't answer. He's inside. I don't know if somebody tried to shoot him or if he shot himself or what. I don't know. He didn't send an ambulance in a hurry. An EMT. He's still alive. He's moving.
Okay, what's going on with him?
I don't know. The driver's side window is all bashed in, and he's got blood all over his head. He's not responding to me. I think you need to hurry.
Yeah, I'm going to get him on the way to you. I just want to ask you a few questions, okay?
Go ahead, but send them as you're asking.
Yes, sir. They're already on the way, okay? Are you with him now?
Very good. I'm standing right outside the garage door.
Can you tell me how old he is?
I don't know. He looks like maybe 35 or 40.
Hang on 1 second for me, okay?
Okay.
All right, sir. I apologize about that. What was the, how old is the patient again? I'm sorry.
I can't tell. He looks maybe 35 or 40. I don't know.
Okay. And is he awake?
He's just moving his head around, but he's not responding. I've called his name, asked what's going on, or not call his name, but ask him what's happening. He's not responding to that, but his head's kind of rolling around.
Okay. Is he conscious?
Well, I can't tell.
Okay. Is he breathing?
I can't tell that. I'm assuming he's breathing if he's moving his head around.
Did you ever hear him talk or anything?
No.
Okay. You said he's sitting in the car, right?
Correct, in the driver's seat.
Okay. Where exactly is he? In the driver's seat? You know.
In the driver's seat.
Is he in the garage or?
In the garage.
Okay. Can you direct the emergency crews to him, sir?
Sure.
Okay. All right, I'm sending the paramedics to help you now. Just stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
Okay.
If it's safe to do so, see if he is conscious and breathing or moving at all, okay?
It's not safe for me to do. I don't want to put my hand in here.
Okay. Well, help's on the way.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be standing by. And I've heard about break-ins in the area, and so I decided to walk over and take a look. And the garage door was up and asked him what was happening. And then I saw the window was shattered, and he's got blood. I'm going to be over here waiting for the EMT, honey. Okay, go ahead, but just tell the kids to hold on inside. They're okay. So tell them I'm out here.
All right, just stay on the line with me for now, okay, sir?
Okay,
I got him on the way to you.
Very good. I'm standing at the street, so if I see him coming down the street, I can direct him right in.
So he won't respond to you at all?
Not to me.
Holler at him or anything?
Yeah, he didn't respond, but his head kind of moving around.
Okay.
But I've walked away from the car right now. I'm standing at the street, so...
And he's...
No.
Okay.
He's inside. The window's shattered. The garage door was up.
Okay.
Where is the vehicle dispatched from?
I'm not sure. Give me a second. I'll try to see where they are, okay? Is he still moving around?
I don't know. I'm standing at the street now trying to wait for your vehicle. Did you say you were checking on where it was?
Yes, sir.
Or where it's coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it coming from?
I'm checking.
Okay.
Got several people on the way. Looks like one person's coming from McClay Road.
Okay, well, it may take them a while to get here then. We're close to the hospital, so...
Mm-hmm. So you're saying his head is bloody now?
Yeah, it's been bloody. I mean, it's...
Okay.
The window shattered. I don't know if he's tried to shoot himself. I don't know what the situation is.
And it's the driver's side window, correct?
That's correct. He's still moving around, so he's alive.
Okay. Looks like I should have an officer coming up the roadway.
Okay, well, we need EMT.
Well, the officer's going to be there first. They're not going to come until we figure out what's going on, but they're on the way as well, okay?
He better be if this guy's got a shot living.
Yes, sir. They're on the way as well, okay?
Yep. It looks like could be the officer now.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's just coming up right now.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and let you go, sir, okay?
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Dan was rushed to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, but the damage was catastrophic. The bullets had torn through his brain, destroying tissue, creating injuries that no surgeon could repair. He clung to life for 14 agonizing hours, unconscious, unaware, while doctors did everything they could. He died on July 19th at 1:06 a.m., never regaining consciousness, never getting to say goodbye to his sons, never getting answers about why this happened to him. He left behind 2 little boys, aged 3 and 5, who would grow up with only photographs and stories to remember their father. He left behind colleagues who admired his brilliant legal mind, students who'd been shaped by his teaching, and a body of academic work that would outlive him. And he left behind one of the most complex, most calculated murder-for-hire conspiracies investigators had ever encountered. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong, or a carjacking, or a case of mistaken identity. This was calculated, precise, and expensive. Someone wanted Dan Markel dead badly enough to pay over $100,000 to make it happen. Someone hated him enough, or feared him enough, or needed him gone enough to hire professional killers. The question that would consume investigators for years, that would spawn multiple trials and destroy an entire family, was deceptively simple. Who? Who wanted a law professor dead? Who had that kind of money? Who had that kind of hatred? To understand this case, you need to understand the relationship that preceded the murder, the marriage that failed, and the custody battle that became a war. Dan Markel had been in a bitter, exhausting, increasingly hostile custody dispute with his ex-wife, Wendi Adelson. They married in 2006, seemingly happy at first. Both were academics. Both were ambitious. Both were intelligent and driven. They seemed like a perfect match on paper. Dan was a rising star in legal academia, publishing influential articles, building a reputation. Wendy was carving out her own path. Both came from different worlds that somehow collided in that way relationships sometimes do. Dan was raised in Toronto, Canada, in a modest Jewish household where education was valued, but wealth wasn't abundant. Wendy came from South Florida, from a wealthy, tight-knit family that valued loyalty above all else, where money wasn't a concern and family bond were considered sacred. The marriage produced 2 sons in 2010 and 2012, but the relationship deteriorated rapidly behind closed doors. Friends later described tension, incompatibility, fights about everything from parenting styles to career priorities to where they'd ultimately settle down. By 2012, they were divorced. The marriage was over. But the war? The war was just beginning. And that's when the real nightmare started for Dan Markel. Wendy wanted to move back to South Florida to be near her family, her parents, her brother, the life she'd left behind. She hated Tallahassee. She felt isolated there, trapped in a city where she had no roots, no support system beyond acquaintances, no real connection to the community. Dan refused to let her take the boys. As a father with equal custody rights, with a career anchored in Tallahassee, with every legal right to parent his children, he could block the move. And he did, firmly, repeatedly, without compromise. Court documents reveal a contentious relationship filled with accusations from both sides, parenting disputes about everything from discipline to diet, scheduling conflicts that required judicial intervention, and deep, festering resentment that grew with each passing month. Wendy felt trapped in a city she despised, separated from her beloved family, tied to a man she no longer loved and perhaps had grown to hate. Every day was a reminder that she couldn't have the life she wanted. Every interaction with Dan was a reminder of her powerlessness. For someone from a family accustomed to getting what they wanted, this was intolerable. Her family didn't hide their feelings about Dan. They weren't subtle. They weren't diplomatic. Recordings that would later surface in court, emails discovered during the investigation, and testimony from multiple witnesses would reveal that the Adelson family despised him with an intensity that shocked even seasoned investigators. They saw him as the obstacle preventing Wendy from coming home, the stubborn man who refused to be reasonable, who prioritized his own career and desires over their daughter's happiness. They saw him as controlling, as vindictive, as someone who was punishing Wendy by forcing her to stay in Tallahassee. And according to prosecutors who would spend years building their case, they saw him as a problem that needed to be eliminated, a roadblock that could be removed, an inconvenience that money and planning could make disappear. Hours after Dan's murder, while he was still clinging to life in the hospital, police arrived at Wendy's door with devastating news. Watch how she responds when she's told the father of her children has been shot. Watch her face, her body language, her words. And then ask yourself what genuine shock looks like.
Did your ID with you?
I just listened to my voicemail.
What'd you hear?
I
Who was
just-
your voicemail?
It's from Lisa Carey, who is my real estate agent, or who I had gone with to find a house. She just said she was driving around town and she heard there was a shooting on Trescott.
Yeah. That's what this is about. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I should.
It's all right. Just leave it there. Is it still on?
It's right there.
Hey, it's Lisa Carey. It is Friday, and I feel like an idiot doing this, but I just heard that there was a shooting over on Trescott, and I promise I'm not trying to be dramatic or even nosy. I don't know, just checking on you, my friend. I hope all is well. I hope your sweet boys are well, and if there's anything you need, let me know. It just ran a chill down my spine when I heard that there was something going on Trescott. All right, 212-3083. Hope all is well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
That's all right. You can stop it. Or does it stop automatically?
It's done.
Okay. Do you have your identification with you? So you never took the last name of Markel?
No.
Adelson. Okay. Wendy with an I. Jill. All right. There was a shooting at your home, or your ex-husband's home, at 2116 Trescott. Okay. Your ex-husband, Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm a messenger at this party. What happened?
Well, before we get into everything, I have to establish where you were and who you were with and so forth.
Okay.
Okay, and then once we've established all that, I can give you more details.
Okay.
Do you understand why I wanted you to come here before I discuss this?
Oh my God. Oh I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, you have nothing to be sorry about.
I just don't understand. How could this happen?
Can you let me get over this hump, okay? Can we do that first? All right. Can you tell me what time you left your house this morning?
Yeah, I was there. I didn't leave this morning. I didn't leave until noon.
Okay. And
Oh my God. And I tried to drive up Trescott and I saw that it was blocked.
It was blocked at some point. I'm not sure what time it was
And I
blocked.
just thought, oh, there's maybe some trees down or something. Because sometimes
Oh, you're saying as you drove down which one of the side roads?
when I'm going to a friend's party tonight, and it's a oh my God, what am I even talking about? I needed to buy, it's a stock the shelf engagement party, and so I went to buy bourbon.
Okay.
So I went to drive from my place up Trescott to get to ABC Liquor, and it was blocked, so I just turned around. I was on the phone at the time. I wasn't paying a lot of attention.
Right.
So I just turned around and drove up the other way. I just thought, oh, sometimes when I lived there were electrical things
Okay.
that would happen. I left my house around 12:15 because I thought I'll get the bourbon and then I'll get some gas for the car and get super glue for one of the boys' toys. And I was trying to do all I can before meeting my two friends at 1.
Okay, who was at your house this morning?
The only person that was at my house this morning was a guy from Best Buy because my TV was broken and it's under warranty.
Either for you.
Yeah, I figured.
Okay,
Oh my God.
a guy from Best Buy was at your house to work on your TV?
I have his name and everything at the house if you
Okay.
want it, because the boys broke the TV, so he gave me a choice of fixing it or getting a new one. And
What time did he come to the house?
he called me at around 8. He was probably there until around 10.
Okay,
Um,
okay. And then you,
and then after he left, I kept working on a paper, and I emailed the paper to a librarian at school to work on some of the citations.
okay.
And I don't think I talked to anyone else, but I was just working for an hour or so from the house. I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry, and then I left the house around noon.
To go to the liquor store and the stuff for the party?
Yeah,
Okay, you went down which road you said?
I went down Trescott.
Okay.
I saw a police car there, and I just thought it was blocked, so I just turned around and drove drove to, I went down the rest of Centerville, went up Benton, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors, bought the bourbon.
I'm a little confused. You're up on Centerville Road. What's your purpose of driving down Trescott?
It's usually the shortcut to get to
Oh.
Monroe.
To get to Monroe?
I usually take it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe.
Okay, all right, so
I
you,
don't know why I said Monroe. I was thinking Mosaic, Monroe, Thomasville.
okay, so when you come down into town on Centerville,
I almost always cut through Trescott.
Trescott, and just drive by your old house?
Well, I do it as a way of like coming to terms with the divorce. But yeah, sometimes I drive there. If I'm too sad, I drive around.
Okay,
If the kids aren't home and I know they're not home, I feel better about driving by the house. But yeah, it's shorter and I just usually drive by.
it's shorter than going all the way down to Benton.
All the way down Centerville and around Benton. It's just
Right.
a shortcut I always took.
Okay, so you turned around and went back to Centerville, I take it,
Yeah.
down to Benton, and went to the liquor store down there on Thomasville?
Yeah.
The one at Benton Road?
ABC Liquors, it's at, yeah, Benton. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, did you make a purchase there?
Yeah,
And that was sometime after 12?
probably 12:30.
Okay, all right.
And I talked to a guy there because I don't really buy much alcohol, and so they wanted bourbon, and I asked the guy, we had a whole conversation about bourbon and
Right.
my eyes, like,
Your eyes?
he just said, your eyes are really blue,
Right.
and
You have contacts?
I do.
Okay.
But I just remembered it.
Right.
So I bought the bourbon and got some gas on Thomasville and met my friends at Mosaic.
Which gas station did you go to on Thomasville?
The one that's, I always forget the name, but the one that's close to the cross street, it's right next to the Goodwill.
Okay.
If you're heading north on Thomasville, like, if you're heading north on Thomasville, it's on your right.
Okay, just past the Goodwill
Just
place?
past the Goodwill, it's close to the intersection there.
Okay, all right, and then from that point, you went straight to the
Went to Mosaic
Mosaic restaurant?
and met friends there. I used to have kind of a steady Friday meeting, and I hadn't seen my two friends in a while. And so we had made plans to meet up.
What time did you get to Mosaic?
About 1. I was a little late. We were supposed to meet at 1, and I got there a few minutes after.
Okay, all right, I know it's cold in here. Okay.
I think that's not why I'm
Okay,
shaking.
I know it's part of it, but do you know anybody that would have a beef against your ex-husband?
He's, oh my God.
I hate to ask it now, but I have to do it now. You
I
understand, right?
understand. I understand. He had friends. He always meant well, but he would sometimes rub people the wrong way.
Okay.
But not anyone who would do something like this.
Anybody that he owes money to?
No, he owes money to me,
He owes money to you?
but not
Okay,
not me.
okay, all right, all right.
Oh my God, we're poor kids. Oh, I know a lot of people didn't really love him, but I don't know anyone who would do something like this.
Well, we're still trying to determine, what happened and how it happened.
But he wouldn't do this to himself.
Okay,
He was a very positive person.
okay. No one that you know of or that you've spoken to recently that he's had some type of problem with or that he was concerned about?
No one that he was concerned about. I mean, we've been separated for 2 years, so I don't know,
Right.
if he had something going on, I wouldn't know about it, but, I mean, I had lost my voice earlier this week, and so we had put off this conversation about our son's school and where he was going to go, and he, I can't, I know a lot of people didn't love him, but not anyone who would, hate him.
Okay.
He meant well, everyone that knew him.
Okay.
knows that he means well, but he can be a little like argumentative.
Right.
But not, he didn't owe anyone money. He didn't do anything except work and take care of his kids. He wasn't involved in anything bad.
Okay.
I can't believe this is happening.
I know. And he was a professor at the law school, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And your divorce has been 2 years, or the total separation, I'm assuming?
Total separation's been 2 years. Our divorce was finalized last summer around this time.
Okay.
He wouldn't do this to himself. He has a girlfriend now.
Do you know his...
When detectives knocked on Wendy's door that afternoon, she became the grieving ex-wife. Tears flowed down her face. Shock registered in her voice and expressions. She asked the questions you'd expect someone to ask, the where and when and how that tumble out when your brain can't process what it's hearing. She seemed devastated. She seemed blindsided. But investigators trained to notice the details most people miss noticed something. Small things. Tiny inconsistencies. Details that didn't quite align with the narrative of a shocked ex-wife learning terrible news. She mentioned that her brother Charlie had recently joked about hiring a hitman to kill Dan. She brought it up unprompted, without anyone asking about threats or unusual conversations. Why would someone mention that specific detail in the immediate aftermath of learning about a murder? Why would that be top of mind unless it had been weighing on her, unless it meant something more than a joke? And then there was the timing. That very morning, just hours before the shooting, Wendy had driven past Dan's house on Trescott Drive, something she never did because it wasn't our normal route, wasn't on the way to anywhere she regularly went, wasn't a street she had any reason to be on. She claimed she was showing her sons a new preschool in the area, giving them a preview of where they might attend. But the school she mentioned when investigators checked was in the opposite direction for Trescott Drive. The route made no logical sense. When pressed on this inconsistency, when asked to explain why she'd driven down that specific street that specific morning, she couldn't provide a coherent answer. She stumbled. She offered alternative explanations that contradicted each other. She seemed surprised that anyone would find this detail significant. Coincidence? Maybe. People take wrong turns. People drive past their ex-spouse's house occasionally, especially when they share children and parenting schedules. But in the world of criminal investigations, coincidences don't exist in isolation. They pile up. One coincidence is nothing. 2 coincidences are interesting. 3 coincidences become a pattern. And patterns, especially patterns that align with the timeline of a murder, become evidence. They become threads that investigators pull until something unravels. And in this case, there are far more than 3 coincidences. What investigators didn't know yet, what they couldn't have imagined in those early hours and days of the investigation, was that Wendy's family had already set the wheels in motion months before. Money had changed hands in parking lots and through intermediaries. Phone calls have been made using burner phones and coded language. Surveillance had been conducted on Dan's daily routines. And the Adelson family, this wealthy, respectable South Florida family, with their successful dental practice and country club memberships, was about to become the center of one of the most explosive, most shocking murder-for-hire cases in Florida history. But before we get to the arrests, before we dive into the trials and the convictions and the wiretaps, you need to see who Wendi Adelson really is. Or rather, who she appears to be, depending on who's asking the questions, who's watching, who's interpreting her words and actions. Here's where this case becomes psychologically fascinating, where it transcends typical true crime and enters the realm of human perception and performance. There are 2 versions of Wendi Adelson that emerge depending on the setting, depending on who's in control of the narrative, depending on what's at stake in any given moment. In court, under oath, with attorneys guiding the questioning and judges overseeing the proceedings, she is composed, articulate, measured, and intelligent. She speaks in complete sentences. She pauses before answering difficult questions. She maintains eye contact. She's described by observers as credible, as someone who carefully chooses her words, as a devoted mother navigating impossible circumstances with grace under pressure. Legal analysts watching the proceedings note her demeanor, her ability to remain calm even when questions become aggressive, her skill of presenting herself as sympathetic without appearing calculated. Listen to how the courtroom sees her. Notice the language used to describe her. Notice what's emphasized, what's praised, what's held up as evidence of her character.
Now I want to talk about your knowledge and your belief on this. You're a smart person, right?
How am I supposed to answer that?
Well, let's go through your resume. You went to Brandeis University, right?
I did.
You graduated magna cum laude.
I did.
If you could explain to the jury what that means.
It means I studied a lot and got good grades.
It means, and to speak, I'm from the Northeast. My Boston accent may give it away. It means you're wicked smart, right?
That's very
You had a high
nice of you.
GPA, a very high GPA.
I work hard.
You also went and you got a master's degree from the University of Cambridge.
I did.
You were a Gates Scholar.
I was.
You then go to the University of Miami School of Law, which is a top-tier law school, Tier 1, right?
Okay.
Right? We're talking about your level of intelligence. You went to the University of Miami Law School, right?
I did, yes.
You also clerked at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, right?
I did.
Now, to get a clerkship out of law school, it's a very difficult thing to do, right?
It's challenging.
You have to have top grades. You have to go through a rigorous selection process, right?
Yes.
You then become a professor at the Florida State University College of Law, right?
Yes.
You're also a published author. Right.
Now you're just embarrassing me.
This case everywhere. You'd agree with me on that, right?
I've been advised by my lawyer not to read it.
All right. Now, we're not talking about reading stuff. There's podcasts,
Also not to listen.
TV shows,
Also not to watch.
articles.
Don't read.
And so you've made the decision. Now, you're a lawyer yourself too, right?
I am.
And you made the decision, I'm not going to look at any of this stuff.
Correct.
I don't want to know what happened to the father of my 2 children.
Not I don't want to know what happened.
How can you say you love those boys if you don't care who killed the father that they loved?
You also have a separate obligation as an attorney to tell the truth, right?
Of course.
Okay.
I don't believe that I did.
You did not.
I don't remember doing that, no.
No further questions.
I don't remember exactly the timeline of that.
Okay, thank you. Lawyers, yeah.
I honestly don't remember.
But then there's the other Wendy, the one captured on police body cam footage in those raw, unscripted moments. The one whose emotional responses have been analyzed frame by internet sleuths, body language experts, psychologists, and millions of true crime enthusiasts trying to answer one question. Is this real? Some viewers see genuine grief, authentic shock, a woman whose world is collapsing in real time. Others see performance, calculation, crocodile tears designed to establish an alibi of innocence. The truth is, we don't know. We can't know. And that's exactly what makes this case so gripping, so endlessly debatable, so impossible to dismiss. You're constantly evaluating, constantly shifting between two interpretations of the same person, the same moments, the same words. This is the power of perception in the modern age. In high-stakes situations, especially those captured on camera and dissected by millions, how we express emotion becomes evidence. A tear can be seen as proof of innocence or proof of guilt, depending on when it falls, how it falls, whether it feels authentic or staged, whether it matches our internal script for how grief should look. The courtroom doesn't just judge facts anymore. It judges performance. Juries don't just weigh evidence. They weigh authenticity. And Wendi Adelson has been performing for years, whether she intends to or not. Whether it's genuine or manufactured, whether it's who she really is or a mask she's learned to wear. Family loyalty is a beautiful thing, something we all value, something that defines us. But what happens when that loyalty becomes something else entirely, something darker? Listen to how she describes her bond with Charlie, the brother who would eventually be convicted of orchestrating her ex-husband's murder.
I absolutely had a close relationship with my brother.
And how soon after the murder did your lawyer advise you not to talk to your family about it?
In 2016.
Okay, so what about the 2 years in between? Did you talk to him about it then?
I mean, I talked to him about the fact that a murder occurred, but I guess I don't understand the question.
But you never talked to him about the suspicions you raised in the law enforcement interview that your brother might have done it?
No, I did not.
You suspected your brother could have been a part of this, right?
I suspected lots of people could have been a part of it.
But he was one of the people, right?
While I was talking with law enforcement for 6 hours, terrified out of my mind, I offered them every possible idea I could come up with.
Right. And one of the possible ideas was that your brother could have murdered your child's father.
I didn't really believe that was possible.
Was part of the plot for you to be able to have plausible deniability about this?
Absolutely not.
Is it better for both you and your brother if you don't know the details of this?
I don't even understand the question that you're asking me.
When did you first become aware that you might be a suspect in this case?
I mean, as the ex-wife, I assumed I was a suspect from the beginning.
What was your first thought when you were asked if anyone might have murdered Dan Markel for your benefit?
I thought, oh my God, maybe if I hadn't divorced him, he would still be alive. Maybe this is my fault because I complained to the wrong person. Maybe Danny gave a student a bad grade and they came after him. I just was trying to think of who possibly could have wanted to hurt him.
But you didn't say any of that before. I mean, the first thing you said was Charlie, right?
I don't think so.
Page 25 of your interview, line 5 through 15. Do you have any reason to dispute? Page 25, not 5 hours into it. You say Charlie might have done it, right?
Can I see, please?
You may. This is going to be tab 1, page 25.
What I say here is that he would never do it. Right under the highlighted part, I say no, he would never.
Need a copy?
Page 25, line 5 through 15. I mean, my brother, the one, his name is Charlie, the one I'm really close to. He makes a lot of jokes in that taste, and it was a joke he made. He bought the TV for me this morning that got broken, and then I was talking to him about whether it made sense to pay or fix it, or whether I should get a new one. And it was always his joke that, he knew that Danny always treated me badly, and it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman, and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV. And you do say you don't think he would do it, but can we agree you brought up his name on page 25 of the interview?
I did.
When asked, would you ever ask someone to do something like this? You say not in a million years. When asked, okay, do you think someone would do this for your benefit without asking you? You say no. And when Isom starts to ask you what good does it serve, you say, I mean my brother, the one, his name is Charlie. Isn't that how it went?
This is the transcript, but I think there's also inaccuracies in the transcription.
Oh boy. All right. Do you want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
I mean, somebody hired them, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid them.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want him held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I said.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly
different
what I
today,
said
isn't
right
it?
here. No, that's not
No
right.
further question.
Wendy and her brother Charlie were close. Very close. The kind of sibling relationship that friends notice and comment on. She testified about their bond, about how he was protective of her since childhood, about how he wanted to help her escape the situation in Tallahassee, about how he hated seeing her unhappy. And help her he did, though the nature of that help would become the subject of criminal trials. Charlie Adelson, a successful periodontist with a thriving practice in South Florida, had connections. He had money, significant disposable income from his medical career. He had resources. And according to prosecutors who built their case meticulously over years, he had a willingness to solve his sister's problem permanently, to remove the obstacle keeping her in Tallahassee, to do whatever it took to bring her home. The evidence against Charlie was overwhelming, the kind of evidence that makes defense attorneys lose sleep. Phone records showing calls to the killers. Financial transactions that could be traced directly to the murder payment. Testimony from Catherine Magbanua, his on and off girlfriend, who became the crucial link between Charlie and the actual triggermen, Luis Rivera and Sigfrido Garcia. The prosecution painted a picture of a conspiracy where Charlie served as the financier and coordinator, where he used his relationship with Magbanua to maintain distance from the actual killers, where he believed he'd insulated himself from prosecution. In November 2023, after a trial that captivated true crime followers nationwide, Charlie Adelson was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But throughout the trial, throughout the testimony and the evidence presentation and the closing arguments, one question lingered in the courtroom like smoke that wouldn't clear. Did Wendy know? Was she involved? Was she the real architect of this murder, using her family's love as a weapon? Charlie's lawyers certainly thought so. They believed it with enough conviction to stake their entire defense strategy on it. In fact, they did something shocking during his trial, something that sent ripples through the legal community and dominated true crime discussions online. They pointed the finger directly at Wendy, suggesting she was the one who initiated everything, that she was the mastermind who manipulated her family's protective instincts, that Charlie was merely a devoted brother trying to solve his sister's problem, that the real puppet master pulling all the strings was the person who'd never been charged, who'd never been arrested, who walked free while everyone around her went to prison. And that strategy, that desperate attempt to shift blame, didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't a Hail Mary pass from attorneys with no other options. It came from recorded conversations where family members discussed Wendy's role. It came from patterns of behavior that suggested she knew more than she admitted. It came from one undeniable, inescapable fact that prosecutors and defense attorneys and internet detectives all agreed on. Wendi Adelson had the most to gain from Dan Markel's death. With Dan gone, she could move to South Florida. She could be with her family. She could have the life she'd always wanted. Dan's murder gave her everything she'd been fighting for in court and losing. In 2024, the case took another dramatic turn, another chapter in a saga that seemed to have no end. Donna Adelson, Wendy's mother, the family matriarch, went on trial for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The prosecution's theory was clear and devastating. This was a family affair from the beginning. This wasn't just Charlie going rogue to help his sister. This was a coordinated effort involving multiple family members, planned over months, financed with family money. Donna, fiercely protective of her daughter, devoted to her children above all else, had allegedly bankrolled the entire murder, working closely with Charlie to coordinate the hit, to find the killers, to ensure Dan Markel would never stand in Wendy's way again. The evidence presented at trial was damning. Wiretap conversations where Donna and Charlie discuss the murder in coded language, talking about the problem being solved and the situation being handled. Financial records showing large cash withdrawals around the time payments were made to the killers. And most dramatically, sudden plans to flee to Vietnam. Trips booked immediately after one of the hitmen was arrested, suggesting consciousness of guilt, suggesting they knew the walls were closing in. When Wendy took the stand in her own mother's trial, when she walked to the witness stand, knowing her mother's freedom hung in the balance, the courtroom atmosphere shifted palpably. Everyone knew what was at stake. Everyone wondered what she would say.
Name and spell your name.
Wendi Adelson, WendiAdelson.
Miss Adelson, where are you from?
I'm from Coral Springs, Florida.
And you live in another state now, currently, right?
I do, yes, ma'am.
All right. How are you employed?
I'm an immigration attorney.
How long have you been an attorney?
Since 2006.
And you're here pursuant to a state subpoena, is that correct?
Yes.
And that subpoena confers a type of immunity on you. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. Which means that nothing you say here in court pursuant to that subpoena can be used against you at a later time. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean you could never be prosecuted. It just means that what you say in court could not be used in any future prosecution. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. I want to ask you about your ex-husband, Daniel Markel. Is that a fair and accurate photo of Mr. Markel?
Yes.
When did you meet him?
We met originally online. It must have been the fall of my first year of law school, so 2003.
Okay. And when did you marry Mr. Markel?
We married in February of 2006.
Were you living in Tallahassee at some point as a married couple?
Yes.
When did you move to Tallahassee?
We moved to Tallahassee my final year of law school, so that would have been in the summer of 2005. And we were here from 2005 till 2006. We spent a year at the University of Miami from 2006 to 2007, and then came back to Tallahassee from 2007 until 2014.
All right. And during the time that you were living here in Tallahassee, did you live over on Trescott Drive?
For some of the time that we lived here, yes.
And when your first child was born, were you residing at the Trescott Drive residence at that point?
Yes.
Okay. I think I have a photo of that here. Is that the Trescott Drive residence?
Yes.
And how many children did you have with Mr. Markel?
We have 2 children.
What were their ages at the time of their father's death?
It was 10 days before my older son's 5th birthday, so he was 4 turning 5, and our younger son was 3.5. The boys are 14 months apart.
And did there come a time when you and Mr. Markel separated?
Yes.
When was the separation?
It was in the fall of 2012.
Whose decision was it to separate?
It was mine.
How did your ex take that news?
Well, we talked about it many times before it actually happened, but when the separation became official, he was very upset.
And even though there were problems and issues and discussions, it was a surprise to him when it actually happened, right?
It was.
Okay. And was part of the reason for the separation your differing views on how to raise the kids pursuant to the Jewish faith?
I'd say it was a very small part, but it was a part.
Did you consider your ex to be a religious zealot?
No, I didn't think he was a religious zealot, but I did think he was using religion as a way of controlling me.
Testifying in your mother's murder trial is an unimaginable position, a nightmare scenario that tests every family bond, every loyalty, every relationship. But when he did it, she sat in that chair, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth, and answered questions about her family, about her relationship with Dan, about conversations that happened years before the murder, about family dynamics that outsiders could never fully understand. She was calm throughout, controlled even under pressure, composed in a way that suggested either innocence or exceptional self-control. But the questions being asked weren't calm. They weren't gentle. They weren't designed to make her comfortable. Then something unusual happened, something that made seasoned court observers sit up straighter. The prosecution's questions became sharp, probing, almost accusatory in their intensity. Watch how the temperature in that courtroom changes, how the dynamic shifts from testimony to interrogation.
It's like my parents have more reason to dislike Danny than almost anyone else. Is that what you said?
That is what I said.
And that's because he hurt you, right?
And I was saying that in the context of talking to law enforcement for hours and hours and trying to help them figure out who might be responsible.
Right. And who did you tell them might be responsible?
Well, I told them many, many people. But are you asking about this particular moment right here?
You told them your family might be responsible.
Or potentially someone to do with a former student or his current girlfriend. I mentioned lots of people that I thought could be responsible.
Okay. And of the lots of people that could have been responsible, your family was one of them.
Yep.
Because they might have done this thinking it would help you. I mean, that's what happened, right?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Your family had your ex-husband killed to try to help you, didn't they?
No, that's completely untrue.
When did you learn that Catherine McBanoa was blackmailing your brother for the murder of your ex-husband?
Today.
So he never told you?
No.
You testified in Catherine McBanoa's murder trial last year, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And she was convicted.
She was convicted, yes.
A crime for which she apparently is innocent because she was just a conduit for Sigfredo Garcia. Did you learn that today along with all of us?
Well, I learned that someone made that argument. I don't know whether it's true or not true.
Did your dad get any big gifts for his 70th?
I don't remember.
So there was no big lead up and discussion about some big gift that you were involved in, at least?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I gave him a present. I hope I did.
Do you remember what anybody gave him for that birthday?
I really don't.
Was the murder of Dan Markel your dad's big gift?
I mean, that's, of course not. That's a horrible thing to say.
What about the grandchildren, getting full unfettered access to the grandchildren?
My parents had full unfettered access to their grandchildren always.
You want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
Somebody hired them, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid them.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want them held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I say.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly
different
what I
today,
said
isn't
right
it?
here. No, that's not right.
No further questions.
This wasn't just standard testimony. This was a battle for narrative control, a fight over who would define what really happened. The prosecution was doing something clever, something strategic that defense attorneys recognized immediately. They were using Wendy's own words, her own descriptions of family dynamics, her own admissions about conversations and relationships, to build a picture of conspiracy that included her even if they couldn't charge her. They were asking questions that required her to either implicate herself or distance herself from the very family she'd claimed to be so close to, so devoted to, so protective of. Every answer was a tightrope walk over an abyss. Say too much and you incriminate yourself. Say too little and you abandon your mother to a life sentence. As a key witness, someone whose testimony could determine her mother's fate, every word Wendy spoke carried enormous weight. Every pause was analyzed by observers. Every expression was interpreted by body language experts watching online. The stakes couldn't have been higher.
Good morning. If you can just take your seat for right now, I will swear you in when the jurors re-enter the room. I believe, even though the jurors indicated they did not have to go to the bathroom at this point, if we are once again dealing with the needs of 14 people, they might be in the bathroom, so wait for the knock. I believe that we have a few jurors that do need to use the restroom. If anyone needs to stretch their legs or use the bathroom themselves, please take your opportunity now. Once we start with the testimony, again, the door will remain closed if you exit. Go ahead. Oh, before you leave the room, Ms. Fulford, once again, Mrs. Adelson, I'm going to reiterate the instruction that I gave to you last Friday concerning any reactions that you may have to either the testimony or the evidence in the case. I understand this may be a distressing thing for your child to be offering testimony in your trial. However, you are to control your expressions and your emotions. Do you understand those? Everyone can take their break. If you need to step down until it's time to testify, you may do so as well.
And then came the moment that sent shockwaves through the courtroom, that dominated legal analysis shows that evening, that lit up social media with thousands of comments and reactions. A moment that nobody expected. Donna's own defense attorney, the person hired to save her from a life sentence, did something almost unthinkable in the middle of the trial. Listen very carefully to what's being suggested here, to who's being blamed, to where the guilt is being redirected.
I wouldn't say without his influence in any way, but yes, they've grown up without their father.
He's not here to give them advice.
He is not.
He can't come to any of their functions, sports, anything else.
Correct.
They're not eating kosher like they would have with their father.
They are not.
They don't have him at all.
They don't have him in their lives day to day, no.
Because on July the 18th of 2014, he was brutally murdered in his driveway. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And you testified on direct that anybody in your family that had anything to do with it should be held responsible. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And that includes you, doesn't it?
Anyone who's responsible.
Nothing further.
Redirect examination.
When you said you were an actor in someone else's show, whose show was it?
I think I felt like I just wasn't fully present in my own life, that I had always been a real people pleaser. And so there was an aspect of not always being true to myself and wanting to make other people happy.
And one of those people is your mom, right?
Yes.
And that's part of why you kept going with relocation, even when you kind of had some doubts about it, right?
I would say it's part of the reason.
A mother's lawyer in open court with cameras rolling and the media watching implied that the daughter was the guilty party, that Donna was protecting Wendy, that the wrong person was sitting at the defense table, that the real architect of Dan Markel's murder was sitting in the witness box. Think about that for a moment. Think about the desperation required to throw your own client's child under the bus in a murder trial. Think about what that says about the evidence they were facing, about the case the prosecution had built, about the impossibility of defending Donna without acknowledging someone in that family planned this murder. Think about what it says about the family dynamics, about the possibility that everyone involved, everyone who knows the truth, understands exactly who's really responsible, but can't say it out loud because she's never been charged. Donna Adelson was convicted on all counts. The jury deliberated and returned a verdict that would send a mother to prison for the rest of her life. She's now serving life without parole alongside her son, both of them in Florida prisons, both of them maintaining their innocence while accepting their fate. Harvey Adelson, Wendy's father, has also been implicated in the conspiracy through evidence presented at trial, but he remains uncharged primarily due to serious health issues that would make prosecution difficult. The hitmen themselves, Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera, are both serving life sentences for pulling the trigger, for being the ones who actually murdered Dan Markel in his driveway. Catherine Magbanua, the woman who connected Charlie to the killers, who served as the intermediary in this horrific plot, is also serving life without the possibility of parole. Everyone connected to this murder, everyone who played a role in planning it or executing it or financing it, is behind bars. The conspiracy has been exposed. The family has been destroyed. Millions of dollars in legal fees have been spent. Lives have been ruined. Except one person who was at the center of it all, who had the motive, who benefited from the outcome, who drove past the murder scene hours before it happened, who mentioned hitmen to police unprompted, who now lives exactly where she always wanted to live. Wendi Adelson walks free. Why hasn't she been charged? That's the question that haunts this case, that keeps investigators up at night, that drives thousands of online discussions and theories. Prosecutors have publicly stated they believe she was involved. They've said it in press conferences and court filings. But belief isn't evidence in the American criminal justice system. Evidence needs to meet a legal standard. It needs to be enough to convince 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt. And despite years of investigation, despite multiple trials producing mountains of evidence, despite all the circumstantial details that point in her direction, despite the suspicious timing and the family connections and the motive that's obvious to everyone watching, there hasn't been enough direct evidence to bring charges against Wendi Adelson. Yet, that word matters. Yet, because the case remains open. Investigators haven't closed the file. And recently, there have been developments, new witnesses coming forward, new evidence being examined, new legal strategies being considered, all suggesting that the story isn't over, that the final chapter hasn't been written. There's a detail in this case that's both haunting and symbolic, a detail that seems almost too perfect for a true crime story, but is absolutely real. Wendi Adelson is a writer. Before all of this, before the murder and the investigations and the trials, she'd written a novel, a thriller. And in that work of fiction, in that product of her imagination, the protagonist's ex-husband is murdered. When questioned about this during testimony, when prosecutors brought up this uncomfortable parallel, Wendi downplayed its significance. Just fiction, she said. Just a story she created, nothing more. Entertainment. Creative expression. The kind of thing writers do. But here's the thing about fiction that anyone who writes understands. Writers create worlds where they have total control. They decide who lives and who dies and who gets away with it. They construct narratives where every detail serves the story, where justice can be whatever they want it to be. And sometimes, whether consciously or unconsciously, fiction reveals more about the author than any interview or confession ever could. Fiction is where desires live safely, where fantasies play out without consequences, where the impossible becomes possible on the page. Listen to her describe her creative process, the way she talks about constructing this story. Then ask yourself a question that has no easy answer. Where does imagination end and desire begin? When does a story stop being fiction and start being a blueprint?
And was Is that the only book you've written, or have you written more than one book?
I've only written one book.
What was the book about?
The book was about human trafficking and about the vulnerabilities that lead to trafficking, the problems when it occurs, and basically how to recover from it after.
Where was the book set?
It was set in a fictional town.
What was the name of the fictional town?
Hiawassee Springs.
So Hiawassee. Is it located in the panhandle of Florida?
No, I used to see the name when I was driving from Tallahassee to Orlando, so it's somewhere in between.
And was the place modeled after Tallahassee?
It was definitely somewhere in Florida, but not supposed to be about Tallahassee, no.
Who was the central character in that book?
So there's 3 central characters. One was one of my clients, kind of a composite character from Eastern Europe. One was kind of a composite character of many clients I've represented from Latin America. And one was a public interest lawyer.
And was the public interest lawyer Lily?
Yes.
And is that the character that's sort of based after yourself?
No, really more based after a friend of mine.
And was Hiawassee, Florida, quote, just a small stop on the way back to what we had previously known as civilization? Is that a quote from your book?
That sounds like a quote from my book, yeah.
And who's the husband of Lily, the public interest lawyer?
You want his name in the book?
Yes.
I think it was Josh Stone.
All right, and what was Josh's employment?
Josh was an English professor.
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
Josh was an English professor.
A professor, where did he teach?
It's been a while. I wrote the book over 10 years ago. I don't remember what I named the university in the
North Florida State University?
That sounds right.
NFSU?
NFSU sounds right, yeah.
All right, and in the book, does Lily lament, quote, we moved to this godforsaken place for Josh's career?
Yes, that sounds like a line Lily would say.
All right. When you looked at page 187 of the divorce document on cross, and I'll hand that back to you. This is actually my copy. Just turn back to 187. Do you see the quote that you read previously from that page?
I don't.
Okay. It had to do with, let's see if I can find it, that you were very unhappy in the marriage. I think it's the 3rd paragraph there.
I see that line.
Okay, the wife has been very unhappy in the marriage and files her petition for dissolution of marriage in August 2012. The husband continues to characterize this as abandonment, and then it goes on to say that he had been disparaging you to some of the folks at the law school. Do you remember reading that?
I do.
Was that intended to be the place in this binder where you allege emotional abuse by your husband?
I mean, I think it's emotionally abusive to suggest somebody has mental health issues.
Okay. What is the Prof's blog? You were asked about that on Cross.
Yeah, it was a blog that Danny started with some of his colleagues to kind of promote community in the law professor world.
And who reads the Prof's?
Probably
Prof's blog?
other law professors and people interested in becoming law professors.
Who is on the Crim Prof listserv?
I don't know.
Were you on the listserv for that profs blog?
I may have been on the listserv at some point.
Do you remember seeing the post that you were shown on Cross?
I do.
And the post says something about Danny and I are planning to attend a conference that will begin Sunday, July 20th. Is there any other information on what you were shown about Dan's travel plans post-murder other than that?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
The post says Danny and I guess it's another professor writing this thing. Danny and I are planning to attend a conference that will begin Sunday, July 20th. Is that the type of information that he would typically have on something like the Profs blog or Facebook?
That sounds right.
Okay, but as far as the date he's leaving, the flight he's on, that kind of stuff, would that typically be on the Profs blog?
He wouldn't put what flight number he was on, but he would almost always communicate when he was going on a trip.
Okay, so going to a conference that starts July 20th might be an example.
Flying to New York tomorrow would be an example.
Okay. But
not,
he didn't
not
put
a flight number.
But he didn't put flying to New York tomorrow on this occasion.
No.
You were referenced several times, not on direct examination by the state, but by your brother's attorney on cross as a co-conspirator. Are you charged in this case?
No.
This isn't your trial, is it?
No.
Is your brother charged with conspiring with you to do a murder?
No.
Is he charged with conspiring with you to plan a murder?
No.
Is he charged with soliciting you to do a murder?
No.
Who is he charged with doing those things with?
I don't think anyone.
Have you had an opportunity to review his indictment in this case?
I have not.
I'll give you an opportunity to take a look at that document to yourself. Who is your brother alleged to have done these crimes with?
Catherine D. Magbanowa.
Were you on the wire in this case, Ms. Adelson?
No.
So when the bump happened, are you familiar with the event I'm referencing as the bump?
I am now.
When law enforcement approached your mother on the street and handed her a piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay. When that occurred, who did your mother call?
I don't know.
Not you, right?
Not me.
Okay. And once your brother found out about the bump, did he call you about it?
No.
Who did he call?
I don't know.
Well, you listened to the calls to authenticate the voices, didn't you?
Just to hear the voices, not to hear the content of the calls.
Okay. And the voices were your brother's voice, right?
But I listened to the calls just to hear who was on them, so I don't know what content they're referencing.
I heard your answer. My question to you now is, your brother's voice was on the calls.
He was on some of the calls I listened to.
Okay. Your mother's voice was on the calls.
She was on some of the calls I listened to.
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
You were asked about Jeffrey Lacasse and the way that your relationship ended. What is OkCupid?
OkCupid is a dating website.
Were you on that dating website?
I was.
Were you on that dating website at the time that you were dating Mr. Lacasse?
No, I wasn't.
And were you speaking, so I guess if you weren't on it, you weren't speaking to multiple men from the website during the time you were dating Mr. Lacasse. And I'll remind you that you provided your phone in this case and it was cell-brighted, downloaded.
Objection, Your Honor. Argument.
The parallels between her novel and reality aren't exact. They're not identical plot points that would prove premeditation, but they're close enough to make you wonder. Close enough to make investigators take note and include in their files. Close enough that prosecutors felt it was relevant to bring up in court, not as evidence of guilt necessarily, but as evidence of something else. Evidence of a mind that had imagined this outcome, that had played with these scenarios, that had written an ex-husband's death and perhaps, just perhaps, wanted to see it happen in real life. You've now seen the evidence that everyone else has seen. You've heard the panic in that 911 call. You've watched the testimony. You've seen the emotional responses captured on bodycam and the composed courtroom appearances. You've heard the heated questioning. You've heard how her own mother's lawyer pointed the finger at her. You've seen the fiction she wrote before reality imitated it. And now you have to decide, what do you believe? Who is Wendi Adelson really? This is the complexity of the American justice system. Public opinion doesn't determine guilt. Evidence does. Legal standards exist for important reasons that protect all of us. You can believe someone is guilty and still acknowledge that belief alone isn't enough to convict. The gap between what we suspect and what we can prove is sometimes vast. And in Wendi Adelson's case, that gap has protected her for over a decade. But protection doesn't mean innocence. Freedom doesn't equal exoneration. And it doesn't mean justice has been served. Sometimes the system protects people from charges that can't be proven, even when that means potentially guilty people walk free. Dan Markel's family has been vocal from the beginning, increasingly frustrated as years pass without charges against the person they believe is most responsible. They believe with absolute conviction that Wendy orchestrated everything, that she manipulated her family's love and loyalty and used them as weapons to eliminate Dan, that she planted the seeds and watched her family execute the plan while keeping her own hands clean. They believe she walked away free while everyone else paid the ultimate price for her freedom. They filed wrongful death lawsuits seeking civil accountability where criminal charges haven't materialized. They've given countless interviews to media outlets, appeared on true crime shows, written op-eds. They've demanded answers, demanded accountability, demanded that someone acknowledge what they know in their hearts to be true. They speak not just for Dan, but for his sons, who lost their father to violence that should never have touched their lives. Wendy, meanwhile, has largely stayed silent throughout this ordeal. She's exercised her right to remain quiet, to not engage with media speculation, to not defend herself in the court of public opinion. She moved to South Florida shortly after Dan's death, exactly where she always wanted to be, exactly what she'd been fighting for in family court. She's raising her sons away from the media spotlight, away from the cameras and questions, away from Tallahassee and the memories and the scene of the crime. She's building a life in the very place Dan's death allowed her to access. She's never been charged with anything. She's never been arrested or handcuffed or read her rights. In the eyes of the law, in the only opinion that legally matters, she's a witness, not a suspect. A victim of tragic circumstances, not a perpetrator. A mother protecting her children from trauma, not a person responsible for creating that trauma. But in the court of public opinion, where evidence standards don't apply and suspicion carries weight, the verdict is far different, far more damning. Here's what keeps people up at night about this case. The morning drive past Dan's house just hours before the murder, a detour that made no logical sense. The unprompted mention of her brother joking about hiring a hitman. The close relationship with family members now convicted of orchestrating the killing. The fact that she was the only person who directly benefited from Dan's death, getting to move back to South Florida with her children, exactly what she'd wanted for years. These aren't wild accusations. They're observations noted by investigators. They're details in police reports and court documents. They're why Wendi Adelson's name will forever be tied to this murder. And then there's the emotional question. How do we judge grief when we see it? If someone doesn't cry the way we expect, does that make them guilty? If someone remains composed under extreme pressure, is that strength or coldness? These are impossible questions with no clear answers. But they're what makes cases like this endlessly fascinating, that we expect certain reactions from people in crisis, certain emotional displays that signal authentic grief. When those reactions don't match our expectations, when the performance doesn't align with our internal script, we become suspicious. We analyze. We replay footage looking for tells, for evidence that confirms what we suspect. But humans are complex. Trauma manifests differently in everyone. Some people shut down emotionally as a protective mechanism. Some people perform grief because society expects it. Some people dissociate, their minds separating from unbearable reality. And some people feel nothing at all because shock requires surprise and surprise requires ignorance. Which one is Wendi Adelson? That's for you to decide as a viewer who's seen the evidence and watched the footage. You are the silent juror in a trial that never happened, weighing evidence that never reached a courtroom. As of 2026, this case remains very much active in the eyes of law enforcement. The state attorney's office has not ruled out future charges against Wendi Adelson. They've made that clear in public statements and responses to media inquiries. The file isn't closed. The investigation continues. New evidence could emerge at any moment. New witnesses could come forward with information they were previously afraid to share. Technology advances, and old evidence gets re-examined with new tools and techniques. Someone currently serving life in prison could decide that loyalty has its limits, that cooperation is worth more than protecting someone who's walking free. It's happened before in cases exactly like this. Loyalty only lasts as long as hope does. And when that hope dies, when people realize they're spending the rest of their lives behind bars while the person they protected lives freely, people start to talk that there's also the civil case moving forward. Dan Markel's family has pursued legal action against Wendy outside the criminal justice system. Civil cases operate under different standards and burdens of proof. They don't require guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They only require a preponderance of evidence, a showing that something is more likely true than not true. That's a very different standard. And it's a path that could finally force Wendy to answer questions under oath in ways she's never had to before. But here's the heartbreaking truth at the center of all of this. Dan Markel is gone. He was executed, murdered, shot twice in the head in his own driveway on a quiet Friday morning. His sons grew up without a father because of a conspiracy allegedly born from family hatred and resentment. Those boys lost their dad to violence when they were just 3 and 5 years old. They're teenagers now, navigating adolescence without the father who loved them, who fought to stay in their lives, who refused to give up his parental rights. They've lived most of their lives in the shadow of this case, knowing that their family story is public entertainment, that strangers debate their mother's guilt online, that their father's murder is discussed in podcasts and forums, and no trial will change that reality. No conviction will bring Dan back to his sons. No investigation will give those boys another day with their father. No legal outcome will erase the trauma of growing up knowing your dad was murdered, possibly by people connected to your own family. That's the real tragedy here. Not the legal maneuvering, not the courtroom drama, not the media spectacle. The tragedy is a brilliant man executed in broad daylight because he refused to give up his rights as a parent. The tragedy is children who will forever have questions about why this happened, about who was really responsible, about whether justice was truly served. So where does this leave us? With a case that's legally unresolved but publicly decided. With a woman who's never been charged but will never escape suspicion. With a family torn apart by murder and conspiracy. And with a question, what do you do when the person you believe is responsible walks free? You keep watching. You keep questioning. You keep demanding accountability. Because that's what true crime is really about. It's not entertainment. It's about remembering victims. It's about seeking truth. It's about refusing to let injustice fade. Dan Markel deserved better. His children deserve better. And the truth deserves to be told. If this case made you think, made you question, made you see how complicated justice can be, then subscribe to Dark Trail Files. Share this video. Comment with your thoughts. Because cases like this don't get solved in courtrooms alone. They get solved when people refuse to look away, when they demand answers, when they keep the pressure on until the truth emerges. This is Dark Trail Files, and we're just getting started.